Okay, so class, last time we met, we were halfway setting up DNS. So we're going to start off with DC1. So basically we did our forward lookup zone. We configured the SOA record, the responsible person record, the two NS records for the name servers. We did host records for all the machines in our network. Then we created one alias. Then we did our forward lookup, which is our reverse. This resolves IP to names. You send an IP, send back a name. Again, for this zone, we did the start of authority, responsible person, our name server records, and then we added point of record for all the machines on our network. Now this machine is a DNS server. This machine is a DNS server and a DNS client. There are some things hidden from us. So if we highlight our server, go to View, then click Advanced View, we have any names we resolved is cached for a certain amount of time. Whenever we highlight your server, click on View, then click Advanced. So whatever the time to live is set for, that's how long we'll keep it in our memory. So we have this cache lookup. This is for our server. I'm going to open up a command prompt. I'm going to click on the Start menu, guys. You don't have to click on a box or anything. You can just start typing. So I'm going to type in CMD and hit Enter. We have this command called ipconfig, and we have certain options. We can display DNS. I have nothing in there right now. But if I ping google.com, then I display DNS, I can see that my client now has some information cached. We resolved that name, so we'll keep it in our client cache.
Would be a problem that I that messed up?
We're going to blow it away. You got to be more exact in your typing. You already picked this. Ping. Okay. Oh, you have that. Do ipconfig space /all. Let me see that first. Yep. Okay. So that is good.
Do you mean that I selected private, not just like the public?
No, you didn't. You didn't configure this.
You were doing like passwords of the benefit of the DNS server. So we just based on the map right here.
It can either physically be
Yeah. I figure I'm not gonna be able to do what's going on right now.
So we just based on the map, as you can see, the DC one, he just like configuration, the IP address for it, as well as he also installed all the actual server manager. He installed the DNS manager.
For the DC1.
Right. As well as the
That wasn't the case when I said
DC choose.
what was the case is you need to configure your IC server. Let's see.
I just got here. This is the first thing I did.
And
Move back up, let me up.
showing.
So we have a DNS server and we have a DNS client. They share no data.
Right.
This is how I view my DNS client cache. If I do an ipconfig all, there's my DNS client. So the only way my DNS client knows what my DNS server is for my client to point to the same server, to the DNS server on the same machine. So that's what I'm doing right here. That's why we put the loopback in for our DNS server. So whenever this DNS client tries to resolve names, it contacts the DNS server on the same machine. Sometimes when you mess things up on the DNS server, you might have to clear the client-side cache and the server-side cache. So right here's my client-side cache. And if I go to the DNS utility, there's my server-side cache. So if you want to clean out your client-side cache, flush DNS. Then when I look at my client-side cache, it's cleared out.
I wasn't here last class. Should I just be watching at this point?
Yeah, because I'm almost done. We're going to blow everything away and start
All right.
fresh.
Thanks.
If I want to clear my server-side cache, let me get him up and running.
He's having bigger issues.
The thing you did wrong was when we were configuring something on a virtual machine, you were configuring on a real machine. No big deal. You need to be very conscious of what machine you're at, especially when you're dealing with all these virtual machines. So this is how I clear out my client-side cache. If I go to the DNS utility and I right-click here, I can clear my server-side cache. So sometimes when you mess up and you have bad data, it'll cache bad data just like it'll cache good data. And if that's the case and you're on machine that's the DNS server, make sure you remember to clear the client-side cache and the server-side cache. You'll go in and set something up and you'll make a mistake and then you'll fix the mistake, but when you try to ping that machine again, it's just pulling the data from cache, so it's not re-querying the server. So if you don't clear out the cache, and that cache has a time to live, like, let me look at this, let me show you this one record in my cache. This has a time to live of forever because it's basically a local record, but when you look here, that's how long you'll keep it in cache. Where does it get this information from? When I first contacted the server to resolve that name to an IP, it told me how long to keep it in memory, whatever that time to live was for. If I highlight my zone and go to properties, under the start of authority, I'm telling everyone, when you use me to resolve a name to an IP, keep it in memory for 1 hour for any records that I own. And we have some other zones. We have some, this is the entire network. This is the loopback. This is the broadcast address. These aren't anything we can configure. They're just there by default. You don't really want to mess with them. So what you really want to do is unselect advanced so you don't see them. Okay, so I have a DNS server. I also have a DNS client on the same machine. And this points to the DNS server on the same machine and resolves names. If I wanted to resolve www.contoso.com, this machine will give me an answer because it's the start of authority for contoso.com. But what if I send in a request www.google.com? This is not the start of authority for Google, so it has to talk to someone else. Right now, the way it's configured, if I highlight the server, then go to forwarders, highlight the server and go to root hints, it talks to one of the root servers. The root server resolves the comm servers. The comm servers resolve to the Google servers. I contact the Google servers and they resolve www to an IP. Very inefficient.
What are root hints?
Root hints are the servers that are the top of the hierarchy. They're all they do is resolve the comm servers, the edu servers, the comm.br servers, the comm.de servers. They don't resolve any single host. They just tell you who to talk to find out who the DNS servers are for Google. So I'm going to find out, talk to a comm server. They're going to give me the IP for a comm server. I'm going to contact that comm server and find out who the DNS servers are for Google. Then I'll contact Google's DNS servers and find out the IP for that host. You speak to a lot of servers to do that. So what you want to do is, we're going to send it to our ISP. So if we don't know the answer, we want to send it to DNS servers that are for our ISP. DNS1. And hopefully they have the information cached in memory, so we'll get a faster response. So if we don't know the answer, we're going to send it to our ISPs. So click on the forwarder tab, or just double click forwarders, hit edit. See how that's grayed out? So it's automatically set up. So meaning if you don't put in any forwarders, you automatically go to the root hit. So we're going to point it, our ISP is the school. Those are DNS servers for the school. Actually, for the computer science department. So we're going to point to the DNS servers in the department. Then those servers are going to point to the DNS servers for the school. If those servers can't give me an answer, they'll send me to the DNS servers for the state. If they can't give me an answer, then we'll go to the ISP. So it's a chain of DNS servers that we reach before we ever get to our ISP. But hopefully one of those servers will have that information cached. If I can't get an answer and I have to go all the way to the root server, it's very inefficient. It slows everything down. So click OK. And now this isn't grayed out because it's saying, if you can't find an answer from your ISP, don't go anywhere else. In 2012, they did this. I'm going to go back to root hints. Sometimes this screen will be blank. I don't know why. In 2008 and earlier, we never had this issue. And we never had that button. If this is blank, you normally just get these from Windows updates. You can just copy it from another server. Before we had that button, we didn't need it. So I don't know if they added that button because we need it, or them adding the button caused us to need it. I don't know what the issue was. But if this is blank, just copy it from another one of your DNS servers. Okay, so if I have a DNS client, could be on the same machine or some other machine, and I wanted to go to this website, it's going to send it to my server will give me an answer. What if I said www.google.com? It's going to send that up to my server. Will my server be able to give me an answer?
No.
So it's going to talk to another server, then maybe another, until eventually it gets me the answer, cache it locally, and give the answer to me. What if I sent this record? Not Google.
I don't know what www is.
Right, and neither does my server. So what's going to happen?
It won't find it.
So then what does it do?
I mean, it's gonna keep trying until it gets to the internet service provider, but then it'll.
No, it won't ever send this. It won't ever send it up here. Because it's saying, I'm the star of authority for Contoso.
Yeah.
So if I don't know the answer, it doesn't exist.
Okay.
And at that point, that's where it stops.
Right.
So it'll only forward names it doesn't know for anything it's not the star of authority for. But if it knows if it's the star of authority for that domain, it won't forward those out anywhere. Okay, so guys, on both of these domain, or zones rather, we have our name server is configured. And basically, if you look at zone transfers, anyone that's on that list, we're going to allow them to copy the zone. So now what we're going to do is set up our secondary zones. This is a read-write copy, meaning we can make changes. So now we're going to go over to the second machine and configure DNS there. The thing is, if DNS is down, your network is essentially down. So you need to have a redundant server. So I'm going to sign into DC2, which is really just a domain, just a DNS server. I need to fix my display settings, otherwise I can't see the bottom menu. Okay, guys, I'm going to sign into D2L just to look at the map.
For some reason, my domain controller one didn't have network connection. Oh no, it does. Oh no, it doesn't.
We're going to blow it away here in a little bit.
Yeah, but I mean, it did last class, so I don't understand.
I do. 1 second. Sometimes, guys, when you come in, no machines will have DNS. No machines will have connectivity. That's because the NAT router the public interface on the NAT router is dynamic, meaning it automatically gets an ISP from an IP from the school. Well, the school doesn't give me IPs forever. It just leases it to me for a certain time. So when this machine went to sleep, it was in the middle of a lease and it was legally allowed to have that IP. Well, now the lease expired and this machine is confused saying, wait, all of a sudden the time just changes on me. You know, it's 4 days later. So this needs to be double click on it, highlight it, disable it, re-enable it, and it'll get a new lease for that network interface. And at that point, you'll start having connectivity again. No one has networks that you're supposed to shut down every night. You know, these machines weren't designed to be shut down every night like we're doing in class. It's just one of the side effects of the environment that we're in. Honestly, we really don't need internet access on the machine, so it's no
still
big deal.
doing whatever you're doing.
Okay.
I don't need internet.
So I'm going to go to DC2. No, I was going to our class. I'm going to look at the map. I don't have it configured here, but this is going to be 172.16.0.1. This is 172.16.0.2. So what is this going to be?
3.
Okay. For those people that this is their first server class, if you're looking at the machines right here, then you click on the networking tab, you can highlight a machine and see what IP it does, what IP it has. So you can kind of look at all the IPs for all your machines. So we're going to go here on DC2 and configure the IP. (172.16.0.3) default subnet mask. We haven't done any subnetting. What is my default gateway? I'll look on the map. What's the default gateway? Right. Now look, I'm going to go back here. (172.16.0.1). Okay. Now I'm not going to answer this. I want you to figure this out. Who is the DNS server?
Itself.
The problem is, if I point it to itself, it won't know anything about what I just configured. When the second, this DNS client points to this DNS server. On this machine, this DNS client will point to that server to allow me to configure the DNS server for this machine. Because I've already had DNS configured. I don't want to recreate everything. All I want to do is take all the settings I've done here and copy them over to the second DNS machine. So I need to point this DNS client on the second server to the first server and then be able to pull all the information over. So again, everything is like a hierarchy. This pointed here, these point upstream and upstream. So this one is going to point to this one. This one will point to here. So just think of it like a chain. So the DNS server is going to point to the first machine.
I actually had to restart my net to get a connection.
Click OK. Anyone want me to go back?
You didn't do a secondary, did you?
No, because once everything is configured, I could do this. Point myself as the secondary.
Okay, that makes sense. You're gonna leave it like that?
I am. Because in reality, it is the secondary. I could go back to the first machine and point it to here for DNS as a secondary if I wanted to. Next thing we do, like all servers, IP settings, hostname. CS01. I'm CS01. I see a lot of CS01s out there. You are not CS01. You have identity issues. Use your station number. I'm going to press cancel and do it again. From the server manager, local server, click the name. Then click change. CS01, this is called DC2.
No capital, no capital, just lowercase.
All lowercase.
Now we're doing.
If it wants to capitalize it, in certain scenarios, let it do it. We're trying to be Linux and Mac friendly.
Yours is 06?
Or six.
What, 5?
7. For those people that aren't caught up, after this portion, we're just starting fresh. I want to click OK or close until I get the restart button. If your real machine booted up, is rebooting right now, you were on the wrong machine. So I have my IP settings configured, I have my hostname configured. Now I need to install software. Do you want me to install software through PowerShell or graphically?
PowerShell.
Both?
Once it's installed, it's installed.
Well, we'll pretend like we're about to do it and not actually like submit. PowerShell it is.
Yes. I gotta wait till that red there.
Couldn't you install the features you need before everything? Before the name changing?
You could.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes. If you're a certificate server, you don't want to do that because at that point, once you're a certificate server, it won't allow you to change any of those settings. Guys, I'm not going to hit enter. You go ahead and type this because you can hit enter, I'm not. So not only do I want, you know when we installed stuff graphically, there was a pop-up saying add features? Because I can install a role, but not install the tools to manage that role. Because maybe I want to manage it remotely. This means include the management tools, just like that pop-up that comes up that says add features. That's what that's going to do. Because you can install DNS but can't configure it locally. So if you don't have the DNS tools, it's because you didn't include this portion of the command.
DNS cloud.
Trust me. By the time we're done, you're going to wish it was.
90% of servers are DNS servers.
That would make sense.
So I'm going to hit enter. It's going to hide it. Now again, it's not going to restart. It's only going to restart if needed. If you have some pending update that needs a restart, or if the service itself that you're installing needs a restart.
Are you just finding an enter?
Yeah.
I just hit enter.
Oh. When you say we're starting from scratch a little bit, like I basically came into class and reran the script and erased everything else.
Don't rerun the script unless I tell you.
I figured, but yeah.
We're going to try to
Good to
continue
know.
with our current setup. Guys, this used to be a 4-credit class. And then they cut it down to 3 credits. Because of some administrative thing. And the dean actually got fired over all the stupid things that he did. But the problem is, it's literally cut the class by 25%. So I used to have these scripts where we would run one set of scripts, do a lab, blow everything away, and do another set of... So now I'm trying to get to the point where we run one script at the beginning and continue to work on that same network without having to rebuild everything. Trying to make an effort to save some time. So it's installed. I'm going to press exit. And now we have DNS here. So Oliver, just kind of wait, and because I'm going to. This is one circumstance where we're going to blow it away because we have two types of DNS servers.
So if I look down in this case.
Right.
Okay.
One is standalone. That's what we're doing now. Then we're going to do them again, but integrated in Active Directory.
Okay. I wasn't sure if we were going to compound from last class. I just ran the script thinking everyone had already done it. And oops.
Okay. So now we've already created our forward lookup zone, reverse lookup zone here. We don't want to have to do this for all of our second DNS servers. So what we're going to do is take the information from here, copy it over to here. If I go here and open up NSLookup, no, actually I want to show you something, guys. If I highlight my server, these menus up here are context sensitive. Context sensitive, meaning whatever I've highlighted might change this menu. So if I highlight my server and go to action, I can launch NSLookup right from here. It looks a little confusing because it defaults to an IPv6 link local IP. Don't worry about that part. Basically, we don't have an IP v6 DHCP server, so it's assigned itself an IP address. And it points to that IP address. So if I do cs01 dc2.contoso.com, guys, I'm going to point to the other machine. I don't want to use that IPv6 address, which is 172.16.0.2. Now if I do my machine name, I can see I already have records configured for that zone. I don't want to point to my own machine because my DNS server isn't set up yet. So the IPv6 was pointing to my own machine. So what we're going to do now is copy everything from this server to our server. Exit, exit to close that window out. So I'm going to highlight forward lookup zone and say new zone.
New zone. Secondary?
Right. This is read write. This is
Read only.
read only. Sorry.
Selected.
Whatever name that you typed on the first machine, you have to type it identically here. You can't have any deviation in the name. It has to match identically. Because it'll query that other machine. If that other machine doesn't have its own with that name, you won't be able to transfer anything. Click next. Our primary server, and I'm trying to get you unconfused about the names. Our primary server is what?
Read and write.
Read write. A secondary server is, what is a master?
Read, write, execute.
Just read.
Who I copy from.
Okay.
Could I copy from a read write and also a read only?
Yeah.
Right. So don't always think that you have to point it to a primary. You can point it to another secondary. All I'm saying is this is who I transfer from. I could transfer from another secondary or another primary. People get confused on the test with the terms. They intermix master and primary. They think they're one and the same. They're not. A master is who I copy from. A primary is read-write. A secondary is read-only. I could copy from a secondary or a primary. So I'm going to say I want to copy from that machine. That happens to be a primary. Not always. As long as I'm on that name server tab on that other machine, I'll be able to copy. How many people were born in the 70s or alive in the 70s? It's sad. This is the equivalent of a 1970s antenna. You got to jiggle it, raise it up, move it around. Why it doesn't transfer, I don't know. Sometimes you have to right click, transfer from master. Hit refresh. Sometimes I right click the server,
Regularly scheduled for
restart it. I just hit F5 for refresh, and then it worked. Just jiggle it a little bit. I don't know why, it's kind of janky. I don't know why it does that. But now look at this. Unlike the other server, if I right click, I don't have new. I can't make changes here. All the changes will be done on the other machine. Whenever a change is done, it'll automatically get copied to this machine. Do I need to come around for anyone? Okay, so I'm going to do it again for the reverse. New zone. A secondary is for an IPv4 reverse. And the network that we originally typed was 172.16.
Secondary?
Right. Who do we want to transfer it from? Mine copy right away.
oh.
Now my DNS client pointed to this machine, to this DNS server, to get this process going. Now I have a client here. It wants to resolve www.google.com. And it happens to be pointing, the DNS client of this machine is pointing to this server. And when I highlight here, my forwarders aren't configured. We need to configure the forwarders. So right now, if I don't know the answer, who am I going to go to for an answer? The root hints. Remember, whatever I configure for my DNS client has no bearing on my DNS server. My DNS server doesn't know anything about this machine. If I don't know the answer, I send that directly up to the root hints, because that's what it says. Use the root hints if no forwarders are available. Just because my client points here doesn't mean my server is going to follow that. So right now, if a client comes to me, I'm going to go to the root hint. So what should it be? Who should I forward to? Should I forward to DC1 or my ISP?
DC1.
Is it going to know any more information than These two. No, is it going to know any more information than I have?
No.
They should be identical. So sending it to here, you're probably not going to get an answer. They're just going to have to send that out anyways, because they're not the start of authority.
But would it send it directly or would it pass go?
As in Monopoly.
Like, DNS one.
Basically, if I send it here,
Pass go.
if I send it here, this machine would then contact here to get an answer.
Right, but let's say you're on 2, right?
If I'm on 2 and it
Right.
sends it here,
Right, it's good. Okay, so it has to go down the chain of command. It can't
Right.
skip. It can't say, hey, DNS2 knows DNS1 doesn't have the same info. Let's go right to the ISP.
so let's just go right to the ISP.
Will it? That's what I'm asking. Will it automatically go, or will it go through the secondary first?
We need to tell it, go directly to the ISP.
Okay, and that.
Sorry, I messed up.
Mine's not pulling from the master. In DC2, it's not getting anything. Well, only for the reverse lookup zones. The older ones are showing up. And I know you're telling me that I should be refreshing it a million times, but it's been a while.
It's there. I can see it.
This is what I made. And this one's
Right.
and these two are just automatic.
No, you need to go over, look at what you have in DC1.
Okay, DC1 I have open right here.
What do you have in the folder? Go to view. Uncheck advanced. Now go to 16. It's identical. So you don't have DC1 configured properly.
Oh.
So you just copied whatever you have configured.
Yeah.
It'll copy bad data just like it'll copy good data.
Is that fine for now?
Yeah. So guys, it's a little bit of a trick to understand the chain of command for DNS. And the natural instinct is, well, I'll point this machine to here. All you're doing is adding a step in the DNS chain and not advancing it at all, really. Because this machine and this machine point to one another. Are copies of one another. They won't have any different data. So there's no reason to forward it to a machine that has the same exact information as you. Unless you're hoping that this machine has it cached, which really isn't an advantage when you're talking about one hop. So just be aware of that. This is automatically happens for you when we go with our next step. But you really need to think about DNS client, DNS server relationship, especially on your own machine and between DNS servers, because it confuses a lot of people. Okay.
Saying that
So if a client was pointing to here for www, it'll go directly to the ISPs. Hopefully it has a cache. If a client was pointing to here, again, it will go to the same 2 servers. This machine, the DNS client on this machine will go here initially. And if it doesn't find an answer, it'll go here. If this machine is down, it'll go back to itself. Now that I'm configured, I could flip that. I could say point to myself, and if my machine is down, go to the other machine. Because I can have my DNS server down on this machine, but the DNS client still be running. So if the DNS server is down on this machine, then go to the other machine. So if you wanted to do that, you could. I'm not really worried about it because not a lot of people are going to be sitting on this machine surfing the web. But okay, guys, what we're going to do next is we're going to do the same exact setting with Active Directory. So I'm going to blow this away. I'm going to go to my downloads folder.
Are we getting an updated script or the same one?
Same script. And we're going to right click it and edit it. Press play. It will reset your entire machine. It will reset all the virtual machines, I'll say that. No, right click and edit, not edit with Notepad, just right click and edit so it opens it up in ISC. Guys, you might see this little blinking thing. Just close out those virtual machines. Because we deleted the machine but it was already open. Don't worry about anything in amber. That's just a warning. You should only worry about stuff in red. I'm going to choose my server image. Click OK. Guys, I'm going to pause the video. So what you need to do is go to Hyper-V, highlight the NAT router under the summary tab. You should have a little desert scene. Mine already went to sleep because I waited so long. Once you've done that, go back to the script, hit enter, let the script finish. We're going to work with the NAT router first, so I'm signing into that machine while waiting for the script. Now my script is done. I'm just going to type exit to close out this screen. Again, I need to fix the resolution.
That's right. Think you hit enter. Yeah, I did a whole earlier. Should I rewrite the script? No. Scroll down. I'm sorry. Up or down?
No.
So I'm going to go to the network card. I'm going to leave public alone. That's going to be a dynamic IP. I'm going to configure private. Guys, make sure that you're on the NAT router, not the real machine.
The IPv address, yeah, that one, that one.
Now I'm eventually going to have these become DNS servers, so I'm just going to point my NAT router to the DNS servers that I'll set up. This is on private.
Professor. Mine is not needed. Because of the private.
Because you prematurely entered pressing.
Oh.
So I can tell you from experience that this one is public. When you hit enter, hit tab. Run.
So I'm going to click OK. OK. Then from the server manager, local server, rename the computer. Click change. If you don't know your station number, let me know. I'm going to call this NAT. CS01, CS01-NAT. Click OK, close, restart.
First one.
Yeah.
Click the chain off.
Does the computer description matter?
07.
I'm sorry?
Does the computer description matter?
It does in certain circumstances. That's a searchable field in Active Directory. So if you give something the description of DC and you want to search for DCs, you can find all of them. So in certain scenarios, you might want to be able to search by that field. So it is a searchable field. We're not using it. IP settings, host name, install software.
PowerShell.
I'm going to use graphics. Guys, if you install not using a PowerShell, sometimes, most of the time, it doesn't work right. I don't know why. So I'm going to go to Manage, Add Roles and Features. I'm going to go all the way down until I see Server Roles here on the left. Then I'm going to choose Remote Access. That's the VPN software, the routing software, the NAT software. And Direct Access, which we'll do in the next class. Next. Now I'm going to continue to hit Next until I get to Role Services. Then choose Routing and all the tools to manage routing. Then just walk through the wizard, check Restart.
Ah, I didn't restart.
It's no big deal. Then click Install. I do the restart out of habit. Most of the time you don't need it.
Just automatically did the
It'll automatically select all.
Once it's done, click close. Then we can open up routing and remote access.
That's the wrong utility, close that out. It installed two things. That's not the one we use. The tools, routing and remote access. Okay, so you need to change your computer name. I'm not really worried about that. You would change it. Under what this one there. That's the description you change. So just in the future, it should be like.
Okay, so I'm going to launch routing and remote access. So just like all the utilities, you highlight, right click, do something. So we're going to configure enable routing and remote access. Choose that. I got the glitch. Press cancel. Do it again. The glitch is nothing shows up on the interfaces. Choose NAT. Choose public. Finish. You might get a warning about ports. Just click OK.
Seems too consistent for a glitch or a bug. It's like always happens.
I don't know what it is.
Yep.
I'm not real worried because in real life you probably won't use this utility. Okay, so that machine is configured. It crashed on me, no big deal.
Oh boy.
It's still running. No issues. It's just this utility to manage it crashed, not the actual service. So I'm going to close out my NAT router. I'm going to boot up DC1. I should have done that already. And DC2. It's going to do the first boot, so it takes a little longer, and there's 2 reboots. How many people got the crash after the fact? I'm not restarting. I'm starting it the first time. If you're running, you're good. Every time they come up with a new server, NAT just gets worse and worse. Go ahead and change your host name if you are ahead of me, CS0 whatever, hyphen DC1. You can change a host name before you change the IP, no problem. I'm also going to sign into DC2 just so it speeds up the process. Now I'm going to configure the IP address. Maybe I'm going too quickly. From this server manager, go to local server, click on my Ethernet card, right click and go to properties. And double click on IPv4. Guys, this is going to be slightly different. My DNS servers, I'm going to automatically point them to my upstream. And when I install the Active Directory software and configure it, it will automatically take those out, replace them with the loopback address, and then make these forwarders for me. It'll automatically do a lot of stuff that we mainly had to do on the other DNS server. So by pointing these to the upstreams, it will convert these to forwarders automatically. So that's one less thing we have to do. On a standalone, we put in the loopback. Active Directory integrated DNS, we put in the upstreams.
Where did we find out where 10.13.2.5 from? Where did we get 10.13.2.5?
I pulled it from my head.
Okay.
There's no way for you can figure that information out on your own. Back in the day, I used to be the network admin here. And I set up those two servers 20 years ago. So that's how I knew them.
I mean, we wouldn't be using that exact address.
You will have to call someone and find out who the DNS servers are. You know, in a case like if this was a real production network, you look on some email that your ISP gave you when they set up your internet connection, and they would give you the IP of the DNS server.
The secondary DC was pointing back to the same DNS.
No, I pointed to the first one.
If you were on the internal network, let's say via Ethernet, and you used ZenMap, you could probably find it those two servers.
But they might not be the right ones to use. You don't want to, if you basically try to figure it out on your own, it might be sending me to DNS servers in Colorado when I have one in Miami. So you want to not only use, they would all work, but why have the delay of sending the packet all the way to Colorado?
Gotcha.
So if I have one local, I want to use a local DNS.
Let's say if you were trying to identify that DNS server without the prior knowledge.
You could probably
If you were internal
query for
network,
port 53 UDP.
yeah, you could map it.
Yeah, but that's a lot of work to avoid a phone call.
Right.
It's not sensitive information. You're setting up a server. You need to know the
You
information.
need to know the information if that's the scenario.
Yeah.
I was,
But if the network admin is worth his weight, then he would have taken precautions against
We'd be able
people
to, exactly, that's what
doing
I'm
Zen
saying.
mapping.
Right.
Okay.
But ZenMap wouldn't work if the infrastructure was not built up correctly.
Right. ZenMap is a utility that you can query the network and try to figure out what's out there, if it's within your private network. But a lot of times, if I start seeing, they have tools on Cisco routers that if you start seeing people scanning ports, it'll shut that port down you're connected
It'll turn
to.
off, yeah.
So I'm going to click OK. OK. Close this and rename.
Did the rename first.
That's fine. You don't need to reboot just to change the IPs. If you've already rebooted after the name change, you're good.
You want it to be named DC2 as well?
Yes. Once I'm back in, I'm going to add software. Add roles and features. So now if I choose, if I go to server roles and I choose Active Directory Domain Services and all the tools to manage that, it's going to determine if a DNS server is needed. If you already have a DNS server in your network, it might not install it, unless you choose. But what it's going to try to do is, because I pointed to here for DNS, during the promotion process, it'll contact the DNS servers. You're not going to be allowed to do any changes to those because you don't control them. At that point, this machine will say, wait a second, DNS is not configured, I'll configure it for you automatically. And we'll see that error message, and it will automatically install DNS. So we don't need to choose it, it'll automatically add it. So I'm choosing Active Directory Domain Services, centralized authentication, centralized security, centralized management. The way you find out where things are in your Active Directory folders is through DNS. So if it's not there, it'll make it for it automatically. So I don't need to choose DNS. Click Next. Just keep walking through the wizard.
Should we click reset the destination? Yeah.
Yes, but the restart doesn't occur until after the next step. In 2016, that actually changed. Sometime during the middle, there was an update, they fixed it. Basically, if you didn't choose restart here, after you promote it, you mainly have to restart it. Then they changed it, so even if you forgot to click it here, it would still force a restart. So 2019 forces the restart, but if you have an old 2016 box that hasn't been updated yet, you might have to do it. Click Install. It actually gave you a warning saying you didn't select restart, so you have to manually restart it. That's going now, but just be aware that it existed. There's going to be a little link that pops up on this screen. Now we have to click to launch the next step. If you close this out by mistake, you'll be able to get to it from this warning flag
Good to know.
to get back. That's called the, I think it's the notification flag. I forget what the name of it is.
So it's left in line still.
Guys, this is an LDAP server. LDAP was invented by Netscape, and Linux uses it, Windows uses it, Mac uses it, Unix uses it. So you can have a Linux domain controller communicating and exchanging data with a Windows domain controller. Microsoft just named it a different name, ADDS, Active Directory Domain Services. So now I have this promote this server to a domain controller. Click that link and it's going to launch another wizard. I'm going to go over this in more detail later. We're going to create a forest. What's in a forest?
Trees.
What's in a tree?
Branches.
Domains. What's in a domain? Domain controllers. So basically, if I did the first domain that I create, will create a forest called contoso.com. It'll create a tree called contoso.com and a domain called contoso.com. And this machine will be the first domain controller in that domain. So after that, if I create another domain called child.contoso.com, that will be a new domain and a new domain controller for that child domain in an existing tree in an existing forest. The reason why it's the same tree is the namespace is contiguous. The child domain includes the parent domain. But if I created another domain in this forest, and this is Microsoft's other fake domain name, datum.com, in this particular case, this will be a new tree because it doesn't include the parent domain name. If I create a child domain under this, called text.datum.com, this will be a new domain with a new domain controller in it under an existing tree. So this is the beginning of a new tree, and this is the beginning of a new tree. A good example of that is Microsoft.com versus MSN.com. It's all part of the same forest, but it's two different trees. So we're going to create a new forest, a new tree, a new domain, and a new domain controller with this process. Click next. Now it's saying if this was an existing domain, even though we're using 2019, it just got released, it's still basically 2016. All I did was re-release it and screw some things up.
What a great update.
It is. Guys, I'm not going to go into what a global catalog server is, but it's giving you the option of installing DNS. If I choose not to install it because I already have a DNS server, that's fine. So I'm going to leave it install it, and it will also configure, and I'll show you. When I join a computer to the domain, it has two sets of user accounts, local user accounts and domain user accounts. When I promote a domain controller to a domain controller, it no longer has local user accounts. But what happens if that Active Directory database gets corrupted? Then I wouldn't be able to sign in because I don't have any local user accounts. So what I can do is create one user account, essentially one password, that allows me to get in to repair Active Directory. This has nothing to do with the administrator account. This will be a separate account. So if you change your administrator password, it won't affect this. You have to use a utility called NTDS util. Guys, anyone remember NT40? You've heard the name before. Microsoft's first domain controllers. Well, NT stood for new technology, so that name kind of stuck. So this is a utility that you can use to change that password. It's command line utility, the only way to change it. So we're just going to use the same password. Guys, if you go into a company and the admin before you got fired or is no longer there, change his password so you know what it is. You don't want the machine to crash and then figure out that you don't know the password.
We're doing the TA11 word.
Yes. Now I'm getting an error, which we want to see. It's saying, I try to contact those DNS servers that you told me about, 10.13.2.5 and 10.13.2.7, and I try to create a zone called Contoso.com. It failed because I don't have the right authority. I don't have the user account name and stuff. That's the error that we're seeing here. So basically, you can't create an authoritative zone, start of authority, for Contoso.com on those machines, so I'm automatically going to configure it here. So this is an error that you want to see the first time you set it up. I'll go into this in your next class. It doesn't work half the time. I'll explain what a delegation is. You only need that when you're dealing with these child domains. Click next. If you have any Windows 95 boxes still floating about, it uses this form of name resolution. Any NTO, NT4 stuff, that's what this is for. Instead of using DNS for name resolution, you just broadcast and say, who has this name? Click next. Guys, to help, if you were doing the certification, I would click on all these little help links here because they give you a lot of information about what's going on that screen, and it's very good about studying for the certification. So we have three locations: our database, our transaction logs, and our sysvol. Our database is just that. That's a database of all of our user accounts, computer accounts, links, group policies. We are not allowed to make changes directly to the database because that database is being copied from a bunch of machines from one to another all the time. So when you make a change, like add a user account, reset a password, you make the change in the log file. And when it's safe to do so, it'll copy it to the database. So this is all the changes that you're applying to your database. They'll get applied later. If your database gets corrupted, I can go to another domain controller, copy over the database, and anything in my log files will be then updated. Your sysvol folder is where you create group policies. If a machine is joined to the domain, when you boot it up or when you sign in as a user, it'll automatically go to that network share and download the policies. No interaction. If you make a change to one DC, those changes will be automatically replicated to all DCs. If I go and copy that folder and put it on the desktop of my machine, it will automatically make that part of the replication cycle, meaning you can never take down your desktop machine. It's next to impossible to delete that folder. So you never want to mess with it, you don't want to copy it, you don't want to paste it, because as soon as you do, it automatically sees it as a replication point, and then at that point, your desktop machine will have to be up and running on it all the time. It's not a network share. The old name for it used to be called reparse point. The new name for it is called a junction.
Could you use a reg edit to
Nope,
fix it?
it's not part of your registry, it is part of Active Directory. You do not want to mess with this network share. All group policies, because it's not one, it's one copy that's mounted on multiple machines. So when you copy it, you're just adding another point to that one location. Click next. Click next. Checking if everything is okay. This machine can support that. It still gives the warning, but it does it automatically. It's saying if you click install, the server will automatically reboot at the end of the promotion process. Before, it used to say if you clicked restart on the previous window, it'll automatically reboot. So we click install. Guys, this takes about 5-10 minutes. Take another break.
Question. So typically we installing the DNet root domain name because like in order to forwarding into the network, we have to set up the private DNS on each server.
Let me see.
Is it that reason? Do we set up the root domain on the DNS DC1 first instead of actual net?
Okay. No. They're talking about setting up a DMZ. I have my NAT router here. I have my 2 DNS servers handling my name for the internet. So if I have a client on the internet and it needs to resolve a name, I need to send that in to the NAT router, and it needs to map that over to these DNS servers.
Then respond back to for
That is not what we're doing. We're not hosting. That's only if you're hosting your namespace for a public network.
Okay.
Yeah. And what they're talking about is like one of those home routers too,
Right.
where it's just going to cache the names. It really is not going to. I'm not going. This isn't a caching name. This is going to be a start authority. It's going to actually host the name. It's not getting the data from elsewhere. It's actually hosting it right on the session.
It's too short a file to actually
Are we supposed to set up
he just does everything again, but in a faster way, like a way we want to add scripts and stuff there, so and then really basically got very capable.
So I was looking at this. Well, it's kind of like
Like what? It's, I mean, it is what we're doing, but it's fast. We're not doing it. He's just showing us how to do each step. Yeah, and then it all comes together. It's not hard. It's literally. I got 100% on the last one. On the other class, yeah, it's the same shit.
okay, alright.
It's not hard to do. I mean, like, you literally everything that he does on the front, or if he puts in a video form, so we just have to copy this. He clicks the plus. Now you click close. After you click close, go to the top right, click tools, and click add and run. So you write it down each step by step, usually it takes a long time. You want $100.
Guys, look at this. Here's another glitch in 2019. See how my virtual machine, it's blank?
You have to exit the VM, right?
Yeah. Exit the VM, go back in.
I didn't do that.
It's
Mine.
randomly.
Okay. I want to show you something. You don't have to do anything. You can stay right there. I just want to show you. When you're dealing with the domain, you have to type the Contoso. Look what happens. By default, do you see how it defaults to Contoso? If it was a non-domain controller, you have two sets of user accounts, local or domain. If I type administrator, well, because I'm on a DC, but if you were in a normal box and you type that, it'll assume the local. So you need to make sure that you always sign in with Contoso / administrator.
Was that before the other
Yeah, you're good where you are. He was just showing you in the event that it would
Exactly.
already have you there. Which I've learned the hard way. Because then you change all the settings on the administrative account of that, and it doesn't do anything for anything else.
You do it, are there users?
Yeah, you're good.
That's
Yeah.
correct.
So once you get in, launch DNS.
Go to tools.
Now, that's a good point. I want to point that out.
I'm gonna go over here.
When you install something, it adds a utility here, then adds this entry over here. What this is so I can jump to there and look at any events that happens to DNS. This doesn't have anything to do with the DNS utility. It just shows you, I can click here, and I don't have this configured yet. And if I had 10 DNS servers in my organization, it would show me all 10. So it would be one location so I can see if any of my DNS servers anywhere in my organization has an issue. If I wanted to launch the DNS utility on one of them from here, I would highlight the server that I want to deal with, then click DNS Manager there. Yes?
So is the Windows Server Manager is the equivalent of like Fedora's cockpit?
Yes.
Is it essentially the same thing? Or is cockpit just mostly for the remote access of it?
This could be remote access too.
So basically, they're essentially, so like it's equivalent. It's the equivalent for Fedora for it.
Yes, but it's not. But that's not just Fedora. You have that on Red Hat too.
Right.
But here's the thing. Most likely, this machine is going to be a rack in a data center. It's not going to have any graphics installed. I'm going to install all these tools on my Windows 10 box and always manage it remotely.
Oh yeah.
So I can have all these tools running on some other box and have nothing but the service running on it locally. So these utilities, these things are nice so I can look at all my servers. You know, at a glance, I can know if there's an event on one machine. One machine, the disk is slow, disk is out, things like that. If I go to Manage and go to Server Administrator Properties, it queries those other servers every 10 minutes. So I'm going to click on Tools, DNS. If I highlight DNS and I go to forward lookup, it's all configured for me. Is my SOA done? My Star of Authority is done. My NS records are done. I automatically have an A record for this machine. The reason why I have an A record is dynamic DNS. Because we're centralized authentication and security, if you're part of my domain and you sign in, it'll automatically create records for you in DNS. The only thing it doesn't do, it doesn't create my reverse. So now I'm going to highlight and create a new zone for the reverse. Click next. The concept of primary, secondary is not needed in Active Directory. Back in the 2003 days of server, you didn't even have this. Because it basically said all copies are read-write. Because there is no copy of DNS. In the old DNS, the standard primary, everything was stored in a file, in a folder. Now, everything here is part of the Active Directory database. So if I create another domain controller and install DNS, it'll automatically pull the data directly from the Active Directory database. It doesn't need to talk to another DNS server. Because when I make a change in this DNS server, it saves in an Active Directory. Active Directory gets replicated to all other all other domain controllers. So if I install the DNS service on another domain controller, it'll pull that data from Active Directory. So you don't ever really need secondary zones, because everything's a read-write. Because you don't make changes to your DNS file, you make it to the Active Directory database. And now, because Active Directory is available, it's automatically going to store that data in Active Directory. Click Next. Who do you want to get this? I could say any DNS servers in my organization can access this data. Or in my domain only. If I say, because I've already erased it, if I say any DNS servers in my forest, regardless of whatever domain, they'd be able to read this data.
Was it secondary or primary?
Primary. We don't need secondaries in Active Directory because they're all read-write copies. I don't care if you have 1 or 50. Because you make changes to the Active Directory database, not to some zone file. It's going to be for an IPv4 network. Again, we're the same network ID. I'm going to allow dynamic updates, meaning when a client boots up, they can create an A record for themselves and they can create a pointer record for themselves. Then finish. You see how it automatically configured all this for me. It did not create a pointer record for this machine. Because when this machine booted up, that zone file didn't exist. So I can force dynamic update from the command line. I'm going to do it from PowerShell first, then I'll do it from the command line. So I'm going to open up PowerShell. I'm going to force this machine to dock to DNS and create any missing records that it needs.
172.16. Hit next. And then the top one. Hit next. There you go. And then double check it by clicking on not added. You'll see it there. But double go down. And you'll see it.
If I hit refresh now, I can see it created a pointer record for this machine because it was missing.
And then you'll see on the parent folder. So now go to the PowerShell. That's just to show you that it's there. Just
Okay.
trusting the one that's in the you want to make sure the parent folder.
If I didn't want to use PowerShell, I can open up a command prompt and use a command prompt command. Remember this command, ipconfig? Does the same thing. Whether I use the ipconfig command or the new PowerShell command.
The same command though?
No.
It's a different one. What's the difference in PowerShell? Oh, got it. Oh, they're both, they're the equivalent command.
Correct. One is a PowerShell applet, one is a command. Okay. So guys, look at our forwarders. Sorry. Highlight the server, double click forwarders. They're automatically configured for me. I'm going to go back to a command prompt. What did I put in the DNS settings when I configured the box initially? 10, 13, 25, and 27 in DNS. When I do IP config all, who's my DNS servers now?
It's coming up to you.
::1 is what?
Not fail.
IPv6 loopback. 127.0.0.1 is IPv4 loopback. By default, Windows Server uses, Windows 10 does too, IPv6 before IPv4.
What was the equivalent, PowerShell applet?
Register-DNS client. Okay. So guys, DNS is done. So let's go to DC2. Let's configure the IP. Guys, at a certain point, I'm not going to explain how to get to this screen. I'm going to hopefully you'll figure it out. Who do I want to point to for DNS? Just like the other one. The DNS client. DC1. Right. DC2 as a client points to DC1 as a server. Because Contoso already exists. It knows about it. If I pointed this to the upstreams don't know about Contoso. I'm going to click OK. OK. Close. Rename, reboot. Once it's rebooted, install Active Directory domain services. You can do it graphically. I'm going to show you PowerShell. What if you don't know the name of the software you want to install?
Tab.
Normally we do install Windows features. This time I'm going to do get Windows features. If you remember the name that it starts with, like AD asterisk, it'll show me all packages that start with AD. Which one do I want to install? What's the name of the package I want to install? Install Windows features, dash name.
Say get.
Right, I did that to get the name.
Okay.
Now that I got the name, I want to install it. It's not case sensitive. Include the Windows feature, management tools, and restart. After a while, you remember these names. Guys, I've been doing it a long time. I really didn't need to do the get, but I'm just trying to show you how to get the names if you don't know.
How to get it.
Remote?
I'm sorry?
Promote it afterwards?
Yes, go ahead and promote it, but it's going to be slightly different. So if you want to wait, I'm not going to create a new for us. It's already created. All I'm going to do is add a new domain controller to an existing domain, to an existing tree, to an existing forest. So mine is done. Guys, I can promote it from here. I'm not going to for the first time. I'm going to go to the flag. Nothing shows up.
Yeah.
Click refresh. Then it shows up. I'm going to type in my domain name. Then click on change for credentials. Make sure you use a backslash. Our standard password. Wait. Did I change the name?
Also backslash administrator.
Press cancel.
Sierra, 01 DC.
Yeah, I did everything. Okay.
Backslash?
No, backslash. For those people that had me before, do I make mistakes up here?
No.
I give you opportunities to shine. You're welcome. So when I make a mistake, you think it's a mistake. I'm just doing it so you can shine.
To see how much we retain.
Exactly. Guys, do I need to stay here? Are we good? Oliver, since the day I met you, you've had problems with user account names. I don't know what it is with you.
Say it again?
Since the day I met you, you've had problems with user account names. I still don't know if you can sign into Red Hat.
Actually, yeah, I can. I just,
Okay.
now it's expired, so.
You can renew it. Incidentally.
I actually figured out I spent like 2 hours on the phone with some lady from help.
Oh, okay.
Took a long time to figure that out.
So guys, I'm going to leave it checked to automatically install DNS. I'm going to type in our restore password. Again, it's going to try to create a zone. It's giving you an error. The error is not right. It doesn't need to create a delegation. The error really should be Contoso already exists. So I'm not going to create it. It's already there. The delegation is something different, but it doesn't work. sometimes when you're promoting a new machine as a domain controller, it needs to copy all the data over from the other domain controller. If this was on some satellite location, it might take, on a slow link, it might take forever to download all that information. So what you could do is back up the original domain controller, bring it to the one you're promoting, and say, get it from the backup. And then it only needs to synchronize what's changed since that backup. Miami-Dade schools, how many people went to Miami-Dade school system? That is the largest Windows domain in the world by millions of objects. That is Microsoft's poster child. When you promote a domain controller in Miami-Dade schools, you click OK, you take a vacation. Literally, it takes a week to promote, just to copy everything over. So they give you this ability to grab the data from a backup as opposed to copying it over the network.
Why Miami-Dade in particular? Why not something like New York?
Because Miami-Dade schools is the biggest. There's no school even comes close to the size of Miami-Dade College or Miami-Dade, the high schools or elementary schools. They are the biggest by far anywhere in the world. The biggest college in the world is Miami-Dade. We're number 4.
How?
Because we're just, people don't realize every semester we have a minimum of 60,000 active students.
How many seats?
I'm kind of lost on this one.
Okay, one second, let me help her first, and then I'll do.
I think we have the same.
Okay. So
Every year for the last.
here, in local server.
Programs and deans and people like me. Compared to like 3 people. Is that degree? Yeah.
Eraser soup. Eraser soup. Okay, so they're getting an error when they try to promote this. I just want to use you two as examples. Because you're pointing to here for DNS. Do these machines know about Contoso? This machine knows about Contoso. So you have to point to 172.16.0.2. The first one, you point to the upstreams. Because Contoso doesn't exist. All others, after this, you point to the first one.
If you pointed by 2, wouldn't by default it point to 1 and then point to the ISP?
Yes, but they jumped over DC1 and went directly to the
So
ISP.
it won't go to your later.
Click OK. Click OK. You pointed it to 2, right?
So we
This is
put
the
the
diagram.
Yeah.
here.
This is diagrams.
172.16.0.3. 0.2. And put 0.1 there. Sometimes, guys, when you try to join into the domain and it fails because of DNS issues, you had the wrong DNS, you might have to do ipconfig flush DNS. Because DNS might say that name is not resolvable and cache that.
And that's a command prompt?
Yeah. We'll see. Did you work?
It's not work. So have you typed that?
Okay, you gotta do change. Contoso / transfer. Guys, I'm just gonna walk through the wizard now. No other changes. Then click install. This doesn't take as long because it's not the first DC.
Yeah, I just did it.
But you keep putting DC, you keep putting the wrong slash. Look, you see how we put a /, it should be a backslash. So it automatically appends that. Change that slash and we'll be good. And guess what we have to do for this DNS? Nothing. Everything will be completely, it will automatically know this is not a forwarder, it will forward directly to here. It knows that, wait, I copied everything from DC1, so I'm not going to forward to DC1, because DC1 and DC2 know the same data. So it'll query DC1, find out who the forwarders are, and make them the same forwarders. If you can't join it to a domain, or you can't promote it, 9 times out of 10, your DNS setting's wrong. That's your go-to. Look at DNS first. If you can ping that other DC, but you can't promote it, definitely DNS is wrong.
Professor, I help. It was giving me that error. So it happens here.
Right, okay.
We don't,
Open the command prompt.
no.
NS lookup space conjunction.com. I can see it's working. Ping. I'm going to force it to cache that name. Good. Resolve it to an IP. Now let's go. No, just like it. Conjunction.com. Change. Conjunction backslash. Make sure. R. WRB.
So what happened?
You had bad cached information. That's the only thing I can do. I didn't see any, I didn't have you change anything. By pinging it, it forced you to talk to that DNS server, resolve contoso.com to an IP, and save it in cache. So when we went back to the other utility, it was already resolved.
Okay.
So my best answer is, I don't know. I really honestly don't know why it didn't work. You want to sign in? Go to Tools, launch the DNS utility. You will see DNS is completely configured. Not only will it be completely configured, it will have an A record and a pointer record for the new machine.
I get the record pretty nice.
Yeah. It's pretty nice if you're not one of these people that want to overcomplicate things.
I'm still getting the error, by the way.
Now you're just going to difficult. Oh, this is a different error. Close. What's the name of the first machine? Let me see the name of the first machine. Go back to the first machine.
Yeah, we can.
Sign in. Stay with this. Okay. I'm gonna look at this number and then you compare it to mine.
Yeah, that's like.
Okay, so here's what happened. Someone put that VHD in a machine and booted it. And at that point, because normally I don't have you put the VHD in a machine, I have you put a differencing disk. When we created that image, we did something called sysprep to make it non-unique. We erased the SID, security ID. So at that point, it can be duplicated in a bunch of machines. When it boots up the first time, it recreates a new SID. So now if you try to use that disk in multiple machines, it says, wait a second, that has the same SID as the other box, we can't use it. That whole machine needs to be blown away. So just hang out. There's nothing you can do. The funny part is, remember the reason why you couldn't do that whole thing before, when you first came? Well, I submitted it to attack. They didn't respond quick enough. So I went and hacked their SCCM server. I found the script. I downloaded it, manually edited, make changes to it, and I ran it locally in your machine. And then they sent me an email today saying, don't do that again. But they go, now that you've done it, do you want us to blow it away or leave it alone? I said, leave it alone, it's fine. So I told them today not to blow it away. Now they're going to have to blow it away. So where were we at? DC2.
How are you gonna let them know? Via email?
I submitted a help desk ticket. All the guys that are doing that job right now, and I'm on video now, I trained. So it's not like they know how I am. And I'm still going to do it again next time.
They're used to it.
Yeah. So I'm going to go to DNS. Everything is all done. I even have a record for this machine. If I go to reverse, everything is done.
Pretty nice when things are automatic.
Go to forwarders. Again, I don't forward to the first machine because it has the same data as the second machine. If I look at my DNS client, it points to 2 as a primary, the loopback as a secondary, just like we did on the standard. Okay, guys, that's it for today.
It says IPv6.
IPv6, go here, click on IPv6, and there's the loopback right there. I recorded this video.